Hello everybody, welcome to this week's show with Chef Mario out of Nazareth, Pennsylvania. I'm so glad you tuned in. Imagine going on a business trip down south to Louisiana and going out for dinner and having this most incredible Louisiana Cajun cooking dish called Shrimp Creole, and then coming home and cooking it for your family. That's what's going to happen this week on Cooking with Chef Mario. Come on back in a few minutes, I'll show you how it's all done.
As the years turn, it's only natural your needs will evolve and possibly outgrow the current spaces in your home. That doesn't mean you need a new home, just a new way to reimagine the space you've got to work with. Don't just hire a construction crew. Bring in a partner you can trust from concept to completion. Anthony Builders. The best way to start is with a phone call. Contact us to discuss your project or arrange an evaluation. To find out about everything we do, visit us online. Thanks.
Welcome back to the kitchen with Chef Mario. So glad you tuned in. It's been a couple weeks since we've done a show. I'm excited to share some good stuff with you. I just got back from a business trip. I've been on a lot of trips in the last 6 or 7 months, and I've been to Florida, I've been to Costa Rica, San Jose, I've been to Vietnam, I was in Hanoi City for a week or two, I was in Houston, Louisiana. I'm really excited to do business, but when I go these places, I'm more excited to learn about what do they eat in these areas and what's their favorite dishes and how can I bring that back and just learn more and do more for the cooking experience here in Lehigh Valley. So it's a dish you really don't find a lot in the valley, and it's picked up from my recent trip, down to Texas area, going through one of the highways there. I stopped at a famous Cajun place and just really had a great dish. Not that I haven't had Southern cooking before, but this one was exceptional. So I really want to share this with you. It's called Shrimp Creole, and you've heard of it before. We're not the first to cook all this stuff. However, we're going to kind of bring it back fresh from the Cajun country and teach you a little bit of the tricks, if you will, on what they do down there to not make a Yankee rendition of it. And I think it's really important is try to make a dish as authentic as possible, unless something in the ingredients doesn't coincide with your diet. Other than that, let's keep it real, let's keep it authentic. And one of the first concepts, or one of the first ingredients in the Shrimp Creole, obviously is shrimp. So I've got some 1620s here, soaking, and I want to talk about the shrimp real quick. It's really important. This is a bag of shrimp. It's 2 pounds. It'll definitely serve about 5 or 6 people very well. You want something like 5 to 7 pieces of shrimp per serving. Beware of the shrimp. They got this stuff overseas that's raised in these hatcheries, and I read stories and documentaries on it. You don't want to eat this stuff. It's ungodly what they feed this stuff, and you can't help but think of what it does to you long term in respects to toxins and waste and biological hazards. Don't do it. You want shrimp that's fresh caught. Typically in the States, in this area, if you want good shrimp, you got to go to the East Coast, call it the Carolinas, and get good shrimp, maybe New Jersey, but definitely down south. I bought this one here, and I was really happy to see that it's not farm raised, it's fresh, harvested from the ocean, and it's from Port St. Joe, Florida. You can't get any more southern than that, where the Louisiana cooking comes from. So it's a nice plump shrimp. I wanted to get shrimp with heads on it. I'll tell you why in a minute, but this will suffice for our expedient cooking endeavor here today. So we're going to put the shrimp aside for a second, and we're going to talk about the other ingredients real quick. We've got the holy trinity of Louisiana cooking, Creole, especially down whether it's jambalaya or gumbo and all those terms associated with that born in the bayou kind of food. And this is the holy trinity for Creole food right here, or for that type of cooking. Bell pepper, onion, celery. Now when we take away this, we got the French holy trinity, the mirepoix. And understand that this isn't too far from this, because the Creole and all those cookings were tremendously influenced by the French. So with that said, we've got a myriad of ingredients here we need to display. We've got fresh garlic, we've got parsley, we got more garlic, we got dry thyme and dried oregano. It would be best to get them fresh. I couldn't find dry oregano, or excuse me, fresh oregano yesterday, so I just suffice with that. I've got cayenne pepper, I got a host of spices. I've got bay leaf. I keep them in this little jar, keep them fresh. We got jasmine rice. No basmati. Jasmine is very indigenous to that type of cooking. I got tomato sauce varieties, diced tomatoes. Only need one here. Let me put this one away. I'm going to confuse you. I got diced tomatoes. I've got shrimp and crab boil. The Zatarin's rendition of it. It's liquid. You can get it in pellet form for the authentic crab boil, but you don't want that. You want the liquid. We got Chef Paul Prudhomme's magic seafood magic seasoning. You got to have some authentic Creole seasoning. You're not going to get this down in Lancaster with the Dutch. I mean, as much as I love Dutch cooking or local, you got to go to a specialty stop, or sometimes on the lower end of the Asian aisle you'll find this. It's hard to get, so you want to get either Zatarin's or this one's right out of Louisiana. It's got all those special seasoning. You may want to play with the Old Bay stuff a little bit. I'll show you where the application on that might be. We've got butter. We've got the Trinity. We're really ready to go here. And it's a little bit of a process. It's not a cheap meal to make. Once you have to obtain these initially, you might spend about $25, $35 on seasonings that'll carry you into multiple meals. So look at it as an investment for your kitchen. So with that said, I've got a stock pot going right here, and I'm going to show you why we're going to do that in a minute. I've got a pot of water here that's going to boil ultimately for the rice. I've got my cast iron cooker here, which we're going to do the bulk of the Creole sauce in here, and I've got some drawn butter back here for, believe it or not, a beautiful garlic toast application, because when you have Creole, you got to have garlic toast. All right, so here's how it works. So we're going to chop our garlic up. Then we're going to make sure we have minced garlic ultimately for the recipe. I want to move right into the shrimp thing. But while I'm doing that, let me open this can here, because it's really annoying when you're trying to put something in a pot and you're fumbling with a can. I got that can open. I got this can open. You want a diced and you want a whole tomato. There's a reason for this, there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you in a minute. And you might want to keep a spare can of sauce on the side in the event you get some unwanted guests, or not unwanted, uninvited guests, pardon me, and they come last minute. You can stretch out the sauce, if you will, and make sure you have enough shrimp. So there we go. But back to the shrimp. Here's the key to the whole sauce. It's really a tomato-y based type sauce. The key to it is in the shrimp, yes, but it's also in the stock. So with that said, you want to take all the skin off the shrimp. I got lucky here. Look at that, deveined. I guess a machine did that, or by hand. A machine did that, deveined. You go back in the water with it, and you're gonna repeat this process. You're gonna pinch the tail off, back in the water. You know, I went to several places. I went to Wegmans, I went to this guy, that guy. Unfortunately, I shopped on Sunday for this, so it's not the best time to go get your shrimp, because it's a specialty item. And the only place I can find decent shrimp was Wegmans. They had a good variety, and it had the skins on it. Again, you want the heads on it if you can find it. I know you pay more per pound. You're not getting meat, if you will, for that dollar value, but you're going to get a better stock out of it, because we're going to reduce the skins. That's where the flavor is. That's where the authenticity of the Cajun cooking comes in. And they're really a nice bunch of people down there, you know. Imagine like driving down the highway, you're going to a business meeting, and you're in the bayou, and you're in the southern area where they got this super unique cooking where you can't get that stuff in the Lehigh Valley or Philadelphia the way they do it. You know, it's like going to Carolina, getting pulled pork, or going to Maine and getting the right lobster dish, whatever. And you're just down there, and you pull in this fancy restaurant, and you know it's Cajun related because of the advertisements. And I pulled it up on Google, and it's got good reviews, blah, blah, blah. So I go in there, and I sit down. It's fancy. It's not one of these blue-collar Cajun places. It's like it's for the upper-class Cajun people, or at least they're trying to attract that. So I sit down, I look at the menu, no prices, no problem, and I said, give me a bowl of this, the seafood gumbo soup. Came out, and that's a whole nother episode. Oh my word, this seafood gumbo soup was over the top. You've never had anything like it in your life. These people are amazing. So I said, you know what, I always liked the idea of Shrimp Creole. Don't know if I ever had a real authentic version of it. Give me the Shrimp Creole. And I had it, and it came out in this real big dish. And it was to die for. And, you know, when I got my bill, those two things, the soup and the Creole, was $65. And that's pretty hefty for a single person. But I was willing to pay it because it was first class. When I got done, I went up to pay my bill, and I talked to the maitre d', and I gave him a $10 bill. I said, do me a favor, can you get the cook to come out? I have a question for him. And the cook came out with this big hat on, big, heavy, burly guy. And I asked him about this dish. Can you please tell him, listen, I'm not going to replicate it here. I'm from Philadelphia. I just want to know this for home cooking. And he told me some of his secrets. So I was really impressed that he would tell me a little bit about what made his dish so special. Because you could pull this stuff up on the internet. You could do all that. But this guy had a special twist. And some of that is here. So with that said, here's the secret. The secret is taking those shells we pulled off, and the secret is making a stock from the skins, preferably the heads. So you're really gonna want to do that, and you'll see why in a few minutes. So as this thing kind of simmers over here, you're going to put that on, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put about a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of this crab boil in there, okay? And that's a special ingredient there. And then the other scenario is going to be the Seafood Season Magic by Chef Paul Prudhomme. He sounds very French. You want to put about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon there. Be careful. This stuff is pungent. This is not mild stuff that you're used to up in the Northeast here. It's got a real spicy Cajun program going on. So now back to the dish. When we talk about the cayenne that's necessary, I'm going to tell you about that, because if you do it wrong, you'll ruin the whole dish. And I've experienced that before. So what we have here is we have this stock pot over here. We're going to get a bit of butter, and we're going to put about a tablespoon and a half or 2 tablespoons of butter in there. And you want to use a wooden spoon or spoonula, and you're going to put your celery in first. I did forget one key ingredient, I just noticed. But the celery takes a while to reduce. Look at that, I almost had a slide off garlic there. The celery takes a while to produce, so get your little palette here, your artist palette, and slick it in there for you. While you're looking at that, I'm gonna get an onion. About a half an onion will do. You know, they say like a rough cut in some recipes, so it depends on how rough or how fine you like it. I kind of like it like a little bit on the fine side. I've talked about that before. I mean, you can have larger pieces of onion there, but you don't want any one particular ingredient to dominate in flavor or texture. So we've got that going on. I'm going to whisk that around a little bit. A little browning of the butter, but I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Then you probably want to mix your bell pepper in. Should have had that prepped, but like the whole experience was just awesome. The people were friendly, you know, and you go around and it's flat down there, you know, and they do have a lot of pickup trucks and swamps, a lot of bridges, you know, unique looking trees. You know, it's nice there though, and the people were like friendly. But back to the Creole thing, I think the Creole thing comes from, you know, this notion of ethnicity. You know, from what I understand, it comes from a history of a, believe it or not, a mixture of ethnic aspects. You know, there were European settlers, you know, 200-300 years ago down there, and they kind of mixed with, you know, the West Africans, Indians, and you came up with this unique, we'll call it hybrid of people that relates to the Cajun and the Creole history there. And you know, it's kind of like when I was in Belize, I spent some time there, and I met up with the mestizos, and they were Europeans mixed in with Africans and islanders and things like that. And how much garlic you put in there? Well, at least 2-3 cloves. You know, you want that much in there. Garlic lasts because it doesn't take long to cook the garlic. Okay, so you're cooking this base. You know, it's a simple base. It's nothing complex. And you got 2 pots going on. We got that pot for the water with the rice, which reminds me, let me put that in now, because it's going to take a few minutes. This is the beautiful part about jambalaya rice cooking and this and that. There's no measuring. How many people you have? You got 3 or 4? You could just take a cup, maybe something like this here. Here we go. Something like this. And I would say a cup and a half. A cup and a half for 4 people or 5 people is plenty. And you can go right in the water with it. You don't have to dry measure and 2 times the actual cup. And you can put it right in there because there's a unique rinsing process with the rice. So we got the rice going on. You might want to put a little salt in there to stop the rice from sticking. Just a tiny bit. Maybe a metal spoon here to stir things up. We've got this stock here that's really reducing quite nice. And tell you, if you had the shrimp heads in there, it's kind of like that crawfish scenario down there, where you get the juice from the heads of the fish. I know it sounds gross, but that is a regional thing, and you're almost getting that effect without the grotesqueness of sucking shrimp heads and Creole heads or crawfish heads. So we've got that there. We're ready to add more stuff to the mixture, and the first thing you want to add is your tomato sauce. Okay, this Hunt's brand, it works pretty good for this. It's a pretty generic sauce. I like the Creole a little bit on the watery side. So when we do that, you're also going to put bay leaf in, probably 2 to 3 bay leaf. Tell your guests to watch out for bay leaf. They're very dangerous. You know, you can get a bay leaf caught in your windpipe, and it's not a good thing for your guests. So that's going to happen there for a bit. We're going to put fresh parsley in there. Don't be afraid of parsley. It's definitely an ingredient down there that they kind of cherish. I'm a little concerned that the heat on this thing is going to bubble my deal up. So I'm going to get a little bit of good water. I call it heavenly water here. That's not been messed with. You know, you got to have good water for your stock or soup basis. Just a little bit of water, so it doesn't go into that bubbly thing that's all over your wall, like like your kids in the bathtub. All right, so we got that. We'll turn the rear down here on the rice. We can turn it down to simmer now. Got that ready. We'll lit it up, put her on low. Mom calls last night. She said, "You still cooking with electric stove?" I said, "Yeah, still cooking with electric stove." And she says there's a lot of radiation that's emitted with an electric stove. And I tell her that, that's fine, Mom. I appreciate that. And she's older and she's concerned about me. And I tell her, would you prefer that I cook over a campfire in the kitchen? And she kind of laughed. So, electric is what I have. Gas could be better, but there's drawbacks to that too. So we're almost ready to add our stock in a few minutes. I'll show you how to separate that. We got drawn butter here for a beautiful crostini type garlic toast. It's really southern that way. Let's go back over here to fresh herbs. Real important to use fresh herbs, and basil is one of them in this. It's a key ingredient in this deal. Now I used this plant last night. You might say that's a pretty lame looking basil plant for $4 organic. But I used half of it last night because I guinea pigged my family when I made this meal. They loved it, by the way. I had guests over and they're like, "Wow, this is kind of out of your range." And not in an insulting way, but like it's not the typical Northeast fare. So and they really liked it. And my kids, who were kind of picky, one of my middle kid, Nicholas, he was eating it, and I said on a scale of 1 to 10, how much? And he's like, an 8. And that's really good for Nicholas because he doesn't really give me a lot of compliments. They're kind of like, they're into the food thing, but they're teenagers. See, when you get older, you kind of get into the food thing because you can't do anything else. At any rate, so back to the herbs and spices. We got oregano, definitely a pinch of dry oregano in there, roughly a half a teaspoon. Back into the mix. Thyme. If you have fresh, it's good. If you don't, about a third of a teaspoon. Thyme is a bit aggressive, so be gentle with it. Cayenne. Here's the key. How much cayenne do you put in? Here's the Northeast version of cayenne. I'm not even kidding you. If you put any more than that in, you're going to turn your guest off. They can add cayenne on the plate if they want, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But down south, they call for 2 teaspoons of cayenne. I'm like, wow. Back to the Creole seasoning. You probably want to put, roughly a teaspoon of that in there. It is pretty pungent. So teaspoon tops because it's overwhelming. All right, we've got that going on. The sauce is in there. Now salt and pepper, I don't know. There's a lot of salt in that in those Creole seasonings and the Chef Magic thing with Chef Prudhomme, you really want to take it easy on the salt because you could be turned off when you get the final dish on the plate. So we've got it simmering pretty good. This could take maybe about 15-20 minutes to reduce. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to this section here where we're going to take our trusty stock, turn this off. We've reduced enough, and we've got this scenario where we want to separate the desired stock from the wasted or discarded parts of the shrimp. So that's going to work like that. Put this pot over here for the dishwasher, which is me. So look at that. That's what you want right there. This is beautiful. Man, if you could smell this stock right now with that seasoning from Cajun country and then the shrimp effect, it really is a trusty thing. And you're gonna delight in the way it tastes. And I'll just use this little rice cupper here. You're gonna come over to the stock and you're gonna scoop it in, kind of like chicken broth, but it really is the, you know, it's the seafood effect. I'm sure they use a lot of this in the gumbo soups, whatever. But how much do you put in there? Well, it just depends on how brothy and liquidy you want your Creole sauce. So it's, as you can see, it's got that dark, rich look to it. It's not Italian spaghetti sauce. Just remove yourself from that. This is really a Southern Holy Trinity Creole seasoning sauce. The bell pepper really sets it apart. It really speaks to the uniqueness of that culture and what they prefer down there. And now I'm going to add the final ingredient on this because this looks like it's simmered fairly well. And I'm going to put the shrimp right in there. So we've got, 25, 30 shrimp, enough for, a nice little setting, intimate setting of 4 or 5 people, or a family of 5, assuming you all like shrimp. So we got the shrimp in there. The shrimp is basically going to cook in this sauce. So I turn the sauce up pretty aggressive on a little bit more than medium, almost high heat. I don't want to burn something. And we're going to reduce that shrimp for about 6 to 7 minutes. Anything beyond that, you're going to be in trouble because you're going to turn your shrimp into rubber bands. It's not going to be good. So when you see the pinkness of the shrimp coming to a head, you can turn it off because the residual is going to cook that shrimp. Let's put this on so it gets a full test there. Forgot to mention about the diced tomatoes. So while we were on break, I went ahead and added the diced tomatoes. The Shrimp Creole came to a boil, and I said, you know what? Enough is enough. And that's the desired temperature I'm looking for. They're plump. They're not all curled up. They're ready to go. They're fully cooked, but they got life in them. It's all about meat, and this kind of protein only has one life cycle. That's where you want it, right there. You don't want shriveled up raisin shrimp. So here we go, back to the last stage of our program. How do you make that nice Southern style, I'll call it Texas garlic toast. I guess I just gave it a name, and maybe it's a true name, maybe it's not. But we got a little bit of a recipe going on here. Nothing crazy. You've done this before, I'm sure. You buy this in the frozen food section at supermarket. We got to have a little bit of garlic, of course. How much is a little? I don't know, 3 or 4 cloves here. I like a lot of garlic. In cold season, flu season, you need that stuff. So here we go, a little bit of drawn butter. There you go, it's drawn. Put that aside, get your whipper going here. Zing, zing, zing. There you go, there she's at there. Now you want to maybe take that off. Take the cutter out. You don't want that when you're applying the butter because you're going to get cut. Back to the toast factor. How hot is my pan? My pan's not too hot. Now you want to start buttering up your toast. 2 sides if you can, because it kind of cooks good that way, but we'll just do 1 side. So what you can do is garlic butter and parsley it, and this is a kind of an interesting secret, not secret, but you want to go face down on them. And there's a reason, because that really gets them crispy and toasty. You don't want them crouton style, but you want the edges just crisp enough when you bite it. There's that crunch. And you got to have no salt, just parsley and homemade garlic butter on its front. All right, we'll just cook 3 pieces just for instructional purposes here. And just don't be afraid to load that up. The garlic will spread in flavor throughout the bread as it permeates in the cooking. And we got a little bit of parsley there. There she goes. Let me get this hot. It's too hot for me because I had this in the oven. Going back in the oven with this just for a few minutes. Just for a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. So I've got the rice thing going on. You can get the rice right out of the pot. You can go here like that. Might want to pat the rice down and get the liquid out of the rice. All right, there's a reason for that. I'll show you in a second. Like I said, you didn't have to measure this. Jasmine is the best rice for this. I'm hoping that it cakes up good for me because it's really about presentation too. So let's push the whatever former you want to use in your house, whether it's a little custard dish or something, depending on how big your application is. So let's see if she holds up. Oh, that's not too bad. I like that. That worked just right. You know, now it's a matter of getting that gravy in there, the Creole gravy. You want to take the gravy without the shrimp at first, and I'll tell you why. It works better that way. It might be messed up in the beginning, like when I'm pouring it on here, because it's inevitable you're going to get stuff on the lip, and I'll show you. Again, there is a lot in the presentation. It's important. You don't want to suffocate the rice. You want to make sure its little rice head is popping out just fine. Now we're going to get a dry napkin, and we're going to, let's just say, do this right here, just to get the mistake out of the way, because when you get this to your guest, imagery is important on that. And then here's another little trick. I'm going to get a damp cloth or paper towel. I'm going to wipe just a little bit of dampness on the outside of here. I did forget one important ingredient. You're not going to believe it, the shrimp. So you know what I'll do for just to make it easier, I'm going to put it on the table here so I don't drag it across and make a mistake. Get your tongs out, and you want to put as many shrimp as you can. Ooh, succulent. You know, not in any specific order. It can be haphazardly put in there. It kind of gives it that little offsetting artistic flair to it. Cooking's so fun. It's so creative. It gets your juices going. It gets you out of the mundane. It makes you feel like you're a real artist and you accomplished something. You know, this might be good for, you know, husband and wife to share at some kind of a outing. You give one of these type of servings per couple. We're almost there, folks. There we go. Now I'm going to finalize it with one more little, if you could get the crab seasoning, or you can get the Creole seasoning. And on the outside here, you want to put just a little lip of that crab seasoning. You may or may not use it when you're working the dish, but if you want additional seasoning, it's right there for you, and you have the ability to sort of slurp, or mix your bread and mix your shrimp right into that crab seasoning, and it gives it that extra special flavor. It's not quite as done as I'd like to, but you get the idea. You can crisp it up a little bit more, but for the sake of time, we've got this dish right here. There you go, folks. Beautiful. Shrimp Creole, Southern style, Cajun cooking, right from the historical aspect of the Deep South. We're so grateful for the people that made these dishes. We thank God for you. We're so grateful for the creativity aspect of this, and you tuned in. I'm so glad to be your TV partner for these few short minutes. I hope you have a great week. Check us out, the Newburgh Deli. Check us out online, and come on in for a cheesesteak and say hi. Chef Mario over and out, Newburgh Deli in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Take care.
I am St. Michael's. I am St. Michael's. I am St. Michael's.
You want the best for your child. At St. Michael the Archangel School, we want the best for our students, offering structure, a challenging curriculum, and individualized attention based in faith to develop the whole person, mind, body, and spirit.
I am St. Michael's.
I am St. Michael's.
I
am St. Michael's.